The great hall was alive with flickering candlelight and deep shadow. Tapestries hung from the stone walls, depicting ancient battles and mythical beasts. The air was thick with wood smoke, spiced wine, and expensive perfumes. This was the heart of Tudor England, a place of power and peril. Nobles gathered in their finest, moving with practiced grace, laughter soft, conversations whispered. All were players in a grand, dangerous game orchestrated by one man. The court's sounds formed a symphony, murmurs of ambition, the gentle strains of a lute, the rustle of silk, the clink of goblets. Everything projected majesty and untouchable authority. This was the stage for the Tudor dynasty's drama, a world of immense wealth and rigid hierarchy. Favor could be won or lost in a single evening. Tonight, the atmosphere was charged. The king was present, his energy filling the room. The air crackled with anticipation, waiting for the next act to begin. And there he was, King Henry VIII. In his mid-30s, Henry was at the peak of his power. Tall, broad-shouldered, commanding. This was Henry in his golden age. Athlete, scholar, musician, king. His charisma was magnetic. His attire declared his status. A doublet of cloth of gold studded with jewels. He moved through the court with easy confidence. He offered charming smiles, his deep voice carrying above the court's murmur. He was utterly comfortable with his power, knowing all depended on his favor. His charm was both weapon and shield, loved and feared. Tonight, the king was in high spirits, a silver goblet of wine in hand. His bright, intelligent eyes scanned the room. He was a predator, always searching for novelty. The court watched him, eager for his attention. Henry thrived on excitement. Tonight, he was restless, seeking something to spark his interest. He was a man who needed to be surprised. A subtle shift rippled through the hall. A new presence had arrived. Anne Boleyn entered, not with noise, but with quiet, magnetic confidence. Young, recently returned from France, she carried continental elegance. In a court of English roses, she was a dark-haired beauty. Startling, exotic. Her gown of dark French velvet was daringly modern, its neckline flattering her graceful figure. She wore no heavy jewels, only a delicate gold chain with a simple B, a statement of understated elegance. But it was her eyes, large, dark, intelligent, that set her apart. They absorbed the candle light, holding a fire of wit and ambition. Her expression was cool, self-possessed. She observed the court as an equal, not an outsider. Anne was not intimidated, she was ready to conquer. Standing near her sister, she seemed to exist in a world of her own. While others sought attention, her quiet confidence drew it effortlessly. In a court desperate for notice, her restraint was compelling. She was a puzzle, a dark jewel among familiar gems. Different, and in Henry's court, different was dangerous and irresistible. The nobles whispered, curious and wary. Anne's arrival was a disruption, a new force in the game. The king's world was about to tilt, and the court felt it. The king, mid-conversation, suddenly fell silent. His eyes locked onto a single point across the hall. The Duke of Norfolk, sensing the shift, followed his gaze. A ripple of awareness spread. Henry had seen someone. He saw Anne Boleyn standing in the soft glow of a candelabra. Her dark hair, the sheen of her gown, the elegant line of her figure, all caught his attention. But it was her eyes that snared him. Intelligent, challenging, unafraid. She was not looking at him, which only deepened his interest. A hush fell over those nearby. They recognized the king's look. Intense, focused, predatory. His jovial mask slipped, replaced by something more primal. A slow, private smile played on his lips. The courtiers exchanged nervous glances. They knew the king's appetites. But this felt different. Anne was no simpering girl. She held herself with regal bearing. The nobles watched, breathless, as spectators at the start of a new royal hunt. The king had found his prey. The game was about to begin. The court braced for the unfolding drama. Every eye was on Henry and Anne. The air was thick with anticipation. The first move had been made. The balance of power was shifting. The king's focus was absolute. Anne's presence had changed everything. The night's true story was just beginning, and history was watching. The king lingered, savoring the moment, watching Anne from across the hall. The air between them grew charged, the tension almost electric. The lute's melancholic notes underscored the drama. Anne, sensing his gaze, turned. Her eyes met the king's. No fear, no flutter, just a steady, challenging look. In that glance, a silent negotiation began. The court felt the shift. Whispers rustled like dry leaves. Who was she? The Boleyn girl, Howard's niece, newly returned from France. Some saw opportunity, others a threat. The queen was absent. The court felt ripe with illicit possibility. Henry finally moved, handing his goblet to a servant, never breaking eye contact. He walked toward Anne, the crowd parting before him. Every eye fixed on the two. The king, a golden lion. Anne, the dark-eyed woman who had captured him. The space between them shrank. The destiny of a nation hung in the balance of that short walk. The court held its breath. The real drama had begun. He stopped before her, the King of England, imposing and magnificent. The courtiers strained to hear the opening lines of this new play. Henry smiled, expecting deference, the usual curtsy and downcast eyes. He would not get them. "Mistress Anne," his voice was low, intimate. "They say you've brought the charms of France to England, but I see its greatest treasure stands before me." It was a practiced line, delivered with royal charisma. He expected her to blush, to be overwhelmed. Instead, Anne curtsied gracefully, rising with eyes sparkling in amusement. "Your Majesty," she replied, voice clear and steady, "France teaches a woman to recognize true value when she sees it." Respectful words, but audacious in meaning. A subtle parry to his thrust. Henry was surprised, then delighted. This was new. A challenge. He laughed, genuinely pleased. Here was a woman with a mind as sharp as her gaze. She would not be easily won. The game had begun in earnest. The court sensed the shift. Henry was captivated. Anne had matched him word for word. The king loved games above all else. And this was a game he intended to win. The spark between them was undeniable. The lute player's tune deepened, haunting and poignant. The music wrapped around Henry and Anne, creating an intimate world. Their conversation moved beyond flirtation. Henry asked about France, politics, ideas. He tested her intellect. Anne met every question with insight and wit. She spoke of poetry, philosophy, the shifting alliances of Europe. She was more than a pretty face. She was his equal in conversation. This, more than beauty, ensnared him. Her mind, her confidence, her ambition, rare in the rigid Tudor court. The music wove a spell, a prophecy of passion and turmoil. The rest of the court faded into background noise. For these minutes, there were only two people, a king searching for meaning, and a woman armed with ambition. The melody swelled, sorrowful and beautiful. It was the sound of a future being written. The court watched, sensing history in the making. The king was entranced. Anne held her ground. The music lingered, echoing the fate about to unfold. The world outside their conversation seemed to vanish. The court's drama had become deeply personal. The first notes of a tragedy played for an audience of two. The spell was cast. The future was set in motion, and nothing would ever be the same. No one in the hall grasped the true significance of what they witnessed. To them, it was a king's new infatuation, a passing fancy. But this was a spark that would ignite a fire, changing England forever. This meeting was the first step on a long, bloody road. Henry's desire for Anne would become obsession, driving him to defy the Pope and break with Rome. He would declare himself supreme head of the Church of England, all for Anne and the son she promised. Monasteries would fall, fortunes seized, dissenters executed. England would be torn by religious conflict for generations. All of it began here. A glance, a remark, a haunting melody. The seeds of the English Reformation were sown. The foundation for Elizabeth I's reign was laid. The world was about to change, and it all started with a simple Mistress Anne. The future of a nation was decided in a moment of intrigue. History turned on a single encounter. As the evening ended, the king moved on, but his attention remained tethered to Anne. His eyes sought her out, a silent promise lingering between them. Anne resumed her composure, but a new awareness of her power shone in her eyes. She had caught the king, and she knew it. The encounter left an echo in the hall, a charge in the air. The courtiers would talk for days, dissecting every glance, every word. Most assumed it would end as others had. A brief affair, a few gifts. Then the king's attention would wander. They underestimated Henry's obsession and Anne's resolve. She would not be a mistress. She would be queen or nothing. This was the beginning of a legend, passion, ambition, betrayal. The story of Henry and Anne would echo through history, a tale retold for centuries. It fascinates because it shows how history can be altered by the most human of emotions: love, lust, and the desire for power. As the candles burned low and the nobles departed, the future remained unwritten. But the ink was on the quill. The first sentence of a new chapter for England had been composed. The meeting was over, but the consequences were just beginning. Their story would echo through the halls of power long after the music faded. It would become the story of a dynasty and of a nation reborn in fire. The legend had begun.